Hello and welcome to the Car Care Nut channel live stream. How you guys doing today? Hope everybody's doing well. Long time no see. We've taken a small break from the live stream on the month of January, but we're back. I hope everybody's doing well. So let's jump into the questions because it's been a while and I see that the chat is already filling up. And then at the end of the video, at the end of the live stream, not the video, uh, I'll give you some updates for the channels and some things that are going on in the background. But without further ado, let's get right into the questions. And the first one is the H2O man. What scan tool is recommended for my 2002 2007 Toyota Tundra trucks? I do not want wireless and I do not need advanced features. Neither SR5 truck is loaded with electronic options. Only the '07 has ABS. I'd say, the if you have a cell phone and you don't mind it being a little bit slow, the X-Tool A30 I think is a good option. Blue Drivers is another one. For the price of the what is it, the Blue Driver, I would go with the A30. I think they have a cheaper version of the A30. That would be a good scan tool. We recently reviewed the higher version of that one, but you can get the lower version of that. It'll do a lot more than Blue Driver, but Blue Driver is another good option. Javier, the A25A FKS says it takes 4.8 quarts of 0W16, but every time I change it, I put 4.5, it shows full. Yes. So, folks, the A25A, for some reason, don't know why, the spec says 4.8, but if you put 4.8, it's a little bit overfilled. If you put 4.5, it's right on the dot. And don't know why, don't know what's going on. And I've even intentionally left my personal car, left it to drain well over the drip just to see, are we going to get 4.8? And actually, when I did the video, the brake and oil change, I put 4.8 just to see what happens. It was actually slightly overfilled, and I had to go back again after filming and drain a little bit. So 4.5 does it for these. Loco por Toyota, welcome back. Well, it's good to be back on the live stream. Is magnetic drain plugs good for use in the engine oil pan? Some say it's bad because the concentrated clump, if breaks free, can damage the engine. Well, it's okay to use a magnetic drain plug, but there's not really a giant benefit for it because you have the strainer, you have the filter. If anything that's magnetic that's going to get caught by the magnet and become a clump, it's actually going to get caught by the oil filter. And I'd rather it get caught by the oil filter and you replace it than potentially breaking away and causing issues. It's not something that I would recommend you actually do. It's not a big recommendation, honestly. It doesn't do much. And for especially somebody has recently asked this in the comments, for transmissions, it absolutely makes no sense. Transmissions do have a magnet in them to catch anything, if that. So not really something I would recommend. So Ted, Corolla 2001 is an 850 RPM cold start, 7-degree temperature normal. It is a little bit on the low side, but not something I would be concerned about. Especially if you start starting cold. Usually they'll rev up over 1,000 and then they'll settle down to round. Depends on the spec. I would have to look at it, but 600 to 850 is about the range. But I wouldn't be concerned as long as it's not shaking or really having a hard time staying running. I wouldn't worry about it. Spencer Ballard, 2013 Sienna Limited all-wheel drive at exactly 1,750 RPM. I hear a harmonic hum, only when in gear. Dealer tech went with me for a ride and heard it clearly. They tightened the heat shields, but it's still occurring. Honestly, it's going to be really hard to diagnose this in this format, of course, but heat shields is one thing I would chase after. This is going to be a little difficult to duplicate because you'd have to put it on the lift, brake torque it to 1,750 RPM, and really see what's buzzing. The one thing I would try to kind of distinguish is it interior or exterior noise. It might be just a panel inside the car just reach that specific frequency that starts buzzing. Really hard to tell in this format. I'd have to look at it in person. Jason Montejano, long time no see, pal. Missed you. Well, I miss you guys too. Really good to be back. 2012 Camry. I went over a hill fast and dented the oil pan. Engine sounds horrible, like VVTi rattle. Where did I break? So if you dented the oil pan, you want to take care of that right away, because when you dent the oil pan, you actually, where the strainer is, that's the part that picks up the oil to go to the oil pump. When you push the oil pan, you restricted that area where the oil gets taken into the oil pump. And that's why you have all kinds of, you basically have oil starvation, especially at higher RPMs. You want to take care of this oil pan. If it's not severely dented, you can take it out, probably straighten it out, put it back. But if it's severely dented where it's crumpled, just replace it. Play it safe and replace it, because this is very important. You take care of it as soon as possible. Chris Spretz, is there any reliability difference between a 2008 V6 RAV4 versus '09 to 12 V6? What are the problem areas for the '08? Same reliability of newer models. So other than it being a newer model, uh, it's going to be similar. The '09 to 12 did have a little bit of updates, slightly better water pump, slightly better head gasket material. But if you find an '08 in a good condition, it shouldn't be an issue. Something with these as they get older that could be kind of deal breakers if you're buying one. Head gasket leaks, uh, front timing cover leaks with age. That's typical for these. The car overall, this is not just V6 problems. Uh, Rear sway bar links, rear shocks, front struts, front sway bar links. As they get older, we're talking about an older car here. You want to give it a good once over before you buy one of these, because they could be great cars, but if they're neglected, they could be really bad. And rusty ones are really bad on that specific model. So, Rico West, what warning signs are there that your CVT is about to fail? 2009 Ultima 3.5 SE. I don't have experience with Nissan, but I will tell you from the Toyota side, rare for CVTs to really just up and go if they're well maintained, not abused or something like that. But usually extreme noise, all of a sudden like shuddering or banging, like all of a sudden it'll disengage and engage again. These are usually the signs. They're somewhat similar to a standard automatic transmission, but other than the noises, like a very loud whining noise or shuddering is the biggest one with CVTs. So, Chris D, I have a 2009 Toyota Camry Hybrid. Is the 12-volt battery a dealer only item? I think I should replace it soon. I've had the car 7 years. I've not changed it. Could the charging system be damaged? Well, on hybrids, it's not like a typical alternator, so that's not an issue, but you don't want it to strand you. So if you can find, I'm not really sure about aftermarket options that are good. I can't recommend one, but you need to find a battery that is designed to be inside the car, that has a vent. These batteries on hybrids that are inside the car, they'll have a vent, like a vent tube that actually vents that battery to outside. You don't want that battery venting inside the car for health reasons, but as long as the aftermarket battery is the correct rating, sits properly in the place, and it has that vent, should be good. The dealer battery is pretty expensive for these, but if you had it for 7 years, they're actually worth it because they're really good quality. Lala G, how you doing, sir? Thank you so much for joining the live stream. Lala G has actually asked about the live stream a few times, and sorry guys, we had to take a small break just to catch up with life and everything else, but we're back. Kirk Adams, love your channel. Thank you so much for watching, sir. I really appreciate it. I have a 2011 Avalon with a U660E transmission. The internal vehicle speed sensor is going out. How difficult is that to change, and what's a good price? Price wise, I can't just quote the price right off the bat, but it's going to be hour and a half, pushing it 2 hours labor. There, if you're talking about the input and output speed sensors, they're right on top of the trans. I think one of them is on the side. I'm trying to remember here from memory. Basically take the air filter upper and bottom and lower, and should be right there. 1 10 millimeter bolt, and the sensor pops out, if that is the sensor that you are referring to. So our Barbados 2000 Camry 4-cylinder. I love the 2004 Camry, a 2000 Camry four cylinder. I used to have one of these. 160,000 miles, oil change every 3,000 miles or 3 months. Yes, that's actually a good idea on these. They're a little on the older side. They use non synthetic oil. Wouldn't hurt to do it every 3,000 miles, 3 years. Uh, 3 months, not 3 years. That would be very bad. Ron Howell, are there any maintenance items that you would recommend doing, and when should they be done that are not listed in the owner's manual? So most of the items are listed in the owner's manual, but some of the intervals are questionable. Now, oil change every 5,000 miles, transmission every 60,000, coolant, believe it or not, every 5 years is actually a very good idea, unless you want to deal with leaks down the road. But other than that, if you have hybrids, like the fan filter is not listed as a maintenance item for the battery. Don't know why, but that's how it is. You want to take care of that. PCV valve is another one that don't some people tend to replace it too early. With spark plugs is a good idea. Whether you have 60,000 mile spark plugs or 120 seems to be a good interval as long as the car has been maintained. If you just bought this car, you're not sure about the oil maintenance, do replace it. Just PCV valve is one of those things that could work for the life of the car. You never have problems. But when it doesn't work is when the problems start. And you don't want to get to that point because it could be a snowball effect. So Chris Spretz again, 2008 V6 RAV4. What is considered high mileage? Looking for one with 121,000 miles. Life expectancy for a well-maintained one. Spark plug, water pump cost. So 121,000 miles could be high miles, could be not. It really depends on how this car was maintained, what kind of maintenance. Did the owner follow up with the maintenance? Did they neglect the car? Is it just a rusty old bucket? That's another thing that is important. But the main thing is maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. We go back to the same thing. Uh, at 120,000 miles, it should have gone through what we call the cycle of maintenance. So you've gone through the whole book to 120. Now you're going to reset to the beginning. Spark plugs are not extremely difficult. It's actually one of the easier V6s to do because you can actually do them without removing the plenum. And the plenum is super easy to remove. But the water pump is a little bit involved. It's a 5 hour job, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it's a 4 to 5 hour labor job. Not you might replace at this point a 121 if it had a one of those affected water pumps, if you would. It should have had a replacement already, and not something that would stop me from buying the car. It's a good car, a little bit on the plasticky side on the inside, and you can easily tell if the previous owner is taking care of it or not just by looking at the interior, if it's destroyed or not. So let's see. Arthur Alvarado, thank you so much, sir, for watching the channel. I really appreciate it. The One CEO, why are engine mounts on the LS460 all-wheel drive so expensive to replace? Mine is a 2013. Because they're replaced. That V8 is big, that car is crammed. There's a little bit of labor involved in that. That's usually what adds up the most to the labor. And most shops don't want to deal with it, like outside the dealership. So because this is not a car. See, that's the problem with some of these higher priced Lexuses. They just don't break enough, and outside the dealership shops they just don't work on them as much. So when they eventually have something and you show up and it's like, I've never done anything to this car. Now we have to figure out everything. And some shops will just not want to deal with the headache and just send it out the door. So that's the other thing. Stacy Short, thank you so much for joining the live stream. I appreciate it. Roy Kennedy, I have a GS 300 2001, 228,000 miles. All I did was frequent oil changes, tune up. I'm good to go. These are good cars. They really don't do well with rust if you live in a rusty place, but it's a good car. So NADS M in Canada RAV4 2021, they are not accepting that side view mirror looseness and that there is a modification for that in the US. Honestly, that's going to depend on your market and where you're at because that's the TSB for the US and we've been doing it for a long time, but it depends. I would actually have to see if Canada has that TSB, but you could actually find the TSB online and see if they can get you the parts and take care of it. But that really depends on the dealership. Roy Kennedy, I have a 2016 Toyota Tundra. My lights went out and can't find the problem. It's not the fuse. I have brake lights, but no parking lights. So I drew a blank on the name of the fuse that does the uh, tail. I think it's called. You do want to do a simple electrical diagnosis. You start with the light itself. Do you have power? Do you have ground? Any of the lights, they all share the same thing, and then chase it back to the switch. That's you want to find out if it's not a fuse. It's not just about a blown fuse. It's about, do you have power to that fuse? And just a simple electrical diagnosis, but there's nothing common for these other than if you have a trailer harness, that could be your culprit right there. Jose B just bought a 2013 Highlander hybrid, very good condition, 73,000 miles. How do I know if the battery blower fan it's working properly? I haven't heard it. So you're not going to necessarily hear it all the time unless, the battery's hot and it's full blast. The only thing you can do is clean the fan. I do have a video that should cover it. This is a 2013. Yes, I do have a video. There's three vents underneath the back seat. Clean the mesh filter. If you have a camera or some kind of light, just look through. You might actually see the edge of the fan especially on the outer vents. If the filters are clean, if the mesh filters are clean, likely the fans that are clean. If they're clogged solid, then maybe you want to investigate into the fans. But really, that's the only way you're gonna know. Wesley Webb, I have a 2012 Toyota Corolla, and I have a service engine light that randomly comes on and off. It's a P219A Bank 1 air fuel ratio imbalance, severity 3. So the air fuel ratio imbalance is actually the first thing you want to do is, and this is a 2012. Unfortunately, there was a TSB for that, and if this is the case, this will need a cylinder head. There is something with the machining of the valves on these, and this was a very small number, and I'm surprised you're actually still getting this at this point. But do a cylinder leak down test. You'll find that one or more of the valves are leaking. You need a new cylinder head and new valves. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but this was somewhat of a early, not early production because it was affecting like later models, but this was a manufacturing thing, if you would. But cylinder leak down is the first thing you want to do to verify, because it could be also, leaky spark plug, could be a head gasket, could be many things that are causing imbalance between the cylinders. So, Motor Racer, what do you think of using a burp type funnel to refill the coolant on a 2GRFK SV6 without a bleed valve? This seems to be like the only way to get all the air out of the system. So, I really need to get one of these cars to get to a video for you guys, because this is one that I don't understand what Toyota was thinking when they took the bleeder valve out. It just doesn't make sense. But here is the simple. I'll try to make this as quick as possible to not take everybody else's time for this one topic. Fill the car with, you absolutely need that funnel. There's no way around it. Put the funnel, put the coolant before you start the engine. Kind of squeeze both radiator hoses. Keep squeezing them. You'll see bubbles. Keep going in until you don't have more bubbles, just coolant movement. Start the car, run it at 2000 RPM or more. Actually, I want you to be a little bit over 2000 RPM. Have a helper or a pedal depressor, whatever you need. As the car is running, you are going to be very careful because the fans might come on and off randomly. You're going to do the same thing. Squeeze both hoses. You're going to see all kinds of air coming out. Never fill your funnel all the way to the top. You actually want it filled very low. Keep squeezing it until both hoses are hot and your temperature is set and the fan comes on, then goes off. Then, very important that you take off the pedal depressor, let the car idle for a few minutes, then shut it off. You'll see all kinds of bubbles again. That's the only way to bleed these without issues. I hope this helps you with the bleeding. Arthur Alvarado. I like this. Someone gave me a new name. So AMD, Authentic Mechanic Distinguished. Thank you. That's actually, I'll keep that one for memory. Let me take a picture of that so I'd remember it. Okay. So let's get to the question. Still enjoying the 2018 four-cylinder SE Camry. Can you give me some insight about Toyota performance chip made in the USA? So honestly, I am a dealership technician. I work with the OEM. I'm not into the modification, but in a car like the Camry, I wouldn't, because whatever gain you're going to get, it could potentially compromise your reliability, and it's going to be kind of lose-lose situation. You can spend money, get a little bit of advantage, but then you're compromising reliability. I don't see it as worth it, honestly, but it's up to you on that one. German Rodriguez, how do you check the engine oil level on a dipstick when the oil is so transparent? Are Toyota dealerships good at not overfilling the car with oil? Honestly, I can't speak for all dealerships. Some of them overfill cars and they don't notice. That's just the way it is with the auto industry. But what you what you want to do is take a piece of paper, like just, you know, it's any paper, put your dipstick right up, and then move it to the side, and you'll see the actual stain of oil. And then you can compare it with the dipstick. So put the dipstick on a piece of paper, just let it sit. If it's very transparent where you can't see it, then take it off, wipe it down, and then compare it. You'll see the stain of oil, and then compare the height. And that's a better way. Some of these, especially if you're a certain car care nut that really takes care of the oil changes and your oil is always very clean, it can get a little difficult to see. So, Mr. Meach, I have a 2015 Lexus ES350 with 98,000 miles. Do you think it's okay if I get the transmission oil change? Never been changed. I want to keep this car for the longest. Yes, I don't think you're at very high miles. I would get it replaced at this point, but don't let it go along as early as soon as possible. Ben Burned, do you have any suggestions for trouble spots to keep an eye on my 2006 Scion XB? 30,000 miles, original miles. Wow. That Scion XB doesn't have a lot of common problems unless you put rust into the mix. If you have rust into the mix, the common problems will never end. Rusty subframe, breaking bolts on the subframe, everything rots away, and it just gets really bad. But if this is not a rusty car, these do not have a lot of problems, believe it or not. I mean, the most front timing cover, which is very simple to do and not really, they don't really leak that bad. Uh, Front sway bar links do wear on these, which is not really something very difficult to do. Belts, these love to chew up belts, especially that the power steering belt in the back. They love to chew these belts. Again, it's just a belt, nothing. Occasionally, you're going to get a water pump on these, but these are really good cars. They last a very long time if they're not severely rusted. Mark McKay, how does Toyota check wheel alignment at the factory? So there's two things. I actually asked that question. Two things they do. First, it's Toyota. That's how they do things. They assemble the cars in a way where the alignment will be almost perfect, and then as the car exits the assembly line, as it goes through the water test and everything else, it actually goes in a small alignment check. It should be within tolerances because that's how they built the car. Nothing is bent. They preset everything where it should be dead on. Again, they are the manufacturers. They are the manufacturer of the car. They can actually do that. But they do have a final check. The most I have seen from a brand new Toyota is the steering wheel is like slightly off center, and most technicians actually don't pick that up. And only the ones that are looking for it will see it. But the ratio is very little, and that's really the most. And when you put that car back on the alignment to center the wheel, make sure it's good, everything else is dead on. Just steering wheel is off center slightly. But they really do a good job on that. I don't know how other manufacturers do it. Hopefully they're the same at this point. That's very simple, but Toyota is very good about that. Scott Belkin, thank you so much for watching the live stream, sir. So what happened to the chat here? So I know there's something going on with the live stream. It just jumped again. I've told YouTube about this, but they don't seem to be doing anything about it. Well, I guess the live stream jumped, folks. I'm sorry. I was reading that question from N, and the question is gone. I can't get to it. They love to do this. So I'm going to go to the first question that I can access. Hector Melo, I have a 2012 ES350 that I just bought with 177,000 miles and saw that my power steering fluid is low and it takes Dextron 3 ATF. What's the best brand to go? Should I actually that car takes WS? I would actually use WS, Toyota WS automatic transmission fluid. That does not take an aftermarket Dextron or anything of that nature. Maybe I'm sorry, power steering fluid. Apologies. I thought you meant transmission fluid. I do apologize for that. Yes, Dextron 3 is good. However, I would recommend you go to your parts store. Doesn't matter the brand. Try not to get the cheapest brand possible, but um, use power steering fluid. Don't use transmission fluid. I know it's compatible, but the power steering fluids, they actually have a little bit more additives geared more towards power steering per se, not transmission. So that's something I don't know why Toyota does that, but they say it's Dextron 3 ATF, but don't use ATF because there has been a few issues when you use just straight ATF. Do use power steering fluid. It's a little bit separate and different, but that's how this is. Tommy Havard, I appreciate all your content. Thank you so much, sir, for watching. It's given me a lot of confidence in doing some minor things myself. It's my pleasure. And folks, if you have the ability, and I will say this, I'm a professional mechanic. I When people don't fix their cars, bring it to the dealership. That's how I make my living. But I'll tell you this, if you have the power or the ability or the possibility that you fix your own cars, not saying you're going to rebuild engines and transmissions, but oil changes, basic maintenance, do it yourself because it's a good skill to have and it'll save you in the long run. You leave the big stuff for professional mechanics, but the little stuff, nobody will do it like you do. So that's in most shops and dealerships, when you show up with an oil change, they're going to give it to the guy right off the school who have zero experience. So why don't you gain that experience and do it yourself? Do everything right. Watch as many videos. I make videos. Other people make very good videos as well. Watch as many videos. Equip yourself with all the information. Do it yourself because nobody will take care of your car like you do. Brandon St. Clair, 2006 Toyota Tundra, 4.7 V8, 170,000 miles. I took a 260-mile trip with the cruise control set at 75 miles an hour, and I got 11.39 miles per gallon. Is this normal? Yes. The Tundra is never really untold. The newest one with the turbo now, they did not really get good gas mileage. It depends how much stuff you have in the car, stuff in the bed, how are your tires, how are your driving conditions, are you going uphill, downhill? But the exact reason why you're getting lower than you should, but I wouldn't be surprised because Tundra up to was not exactly known for its good gas mileage. And when I say not good gas mileage, it was abysmal. That's just how they were. They were very old school. The best thing is the older one, it was even more old school, more rudimentary, and really did not care about gas mileage. They last forever, but usually forever is defined by how much the owner can stomach the bad gas mileage. That's just how it is. They come from a different time. Okay. So Samuel, how often should the eCVT transmission oil be serviced? 2020 Camry hybrid, anywhere from 60 to 90,000 miles. That's usually a good time to replace the transmission fluid on hybrids. Just drain and fill, very simple, very DIY. Should not cost a small fortune. Actually, should be cheaper than replacing the fluid on a regular automatic transmission. Jose B does a 2013 Highlander hybrid. I think we already answered this one. But yes, they do underneath the back seat, 3 vents. I do have a video for it actually. Jaden Smith just wanted to know if my 2010 Lexus GS should be using synthetic fluid. I'm going off memory here. I think it does, but I would have to double check on that one because there was a year where they switched. I'm trying to remember if it was 13, perhaps. Look at your oil cap. If it says 520 or 530, it uses conventional. If it says 020, you use synthetic oil. Rodolfo Prada, hello from Toronto, Canada. I'd like to hear your thoughts, advice on 2019 Lexus UX 250H. So that's actually a really good model, and I haven't had a lot of time with these because they don't seem very common here. I don't know, for some reason we just don't get a lot of them. But I'm actually getting one next week to drive for a week. That's something we'll talk about in the update. Um, They're nice cars. They're somewhat based off of the that joint platform between the CHR, the Corolla, and not really the RAV4. Nice cars, and they are officially the cheapest new Lexus to buy. But when I say cheapest, I just mean price wise, because they are really nice. The few that I've seen, they seem really nice, and they're basic, small, but they're done nice inside. But more on that when I actually get a time to spend a full week with one and do a full review on it. So that's coming up soon here. Okay. Butch H. Why is my 2021 4Runner engine so loud? 5,100 miles, oil change at 3,000. That is normal for these 4Runners. Do have a loud engine. They have that notorious clatter that you hear, especially when it's stopped. Nothing to worry about. That is a normal characteristic. I know it's annoying, but that's how they all are at 5,100 miles, and it'll be exactly the same at 300,000 miles. So just that's how these are. Tracy, 2011 Prius, 52,000 miles, only using eco and highway, but low gas mileage, about 39. So on if you're doing exclusively highway driving, hybrids do not really do that great on highway, depending how fast you're going, how are your tires, are your brakes locking up. You want to do a little bit of investigation. That's typically the first thing I say when you have a lower than ideal gas mileage. You want to look at, are your brakes dragging, are your tires not eco tires? You want to look into these things first before anything else. Jeremy Powers just got a 2009 Lexus RX 350 with 70,000 miles, all-wheel drive. Bought it in Vegas. All fluids were perfect. I did diffs and coolant to be safe, and oil is AMS oil. What do you think? What do you recommend so I can get her to 300,000 miles? Honestly, maintenance, and you seem to be really on top of it. Keep up the maintenance, and not only just open the book and follow the maintenance. There are some additional maintenance things like we just spoke about them a little bit ago. Coolant every 5 years. Uh, Make sure the spark plugs are done. Make sure you're using top tier fuel. Stay on top of the maintenance by miles and time. We all get those times in our lives where, okay, we're not driving anymore, or a few months where we're not going to drive as much. Then you want to immediately switch to buy time, because this is where things fall off. So stay on top of the maintenance. That's a really good car, and it's going to last if you take care of it. Hooks and hammocks. When towing my boat, 2,500 pounds, with my 2021 Tacoma Sport, should I use D or ECTS or, sorry, ETC or, let me start that again, ETC or S with ETC? So typically, and I don't think the Tacoma does have a tow mode per se, but you do want to tow with D. That's the recommended um, towing place. Downshift as needed and go from there. You shouldn't have issues, but don't tow an S, because S is, the transmission will stay long and it will shift very abruptly, because it's meant more for um, let's get going mode, if you would. That's what I would call it. So tow in D is best, and downshift as you need to slow down if you're going downhill with the boat in the back. So, Fernando Avila, do you believe in the 10,000 mile oil change interval recommended by Toyota? Love my 21 Camry SE United, and I'm not a and I'm a bit hesitant on believing them. You are absolutely right, and that's a good gut feeling. See, the thing about the 10,000 mile oil changes, and people have fought me left and right about this. I hope many examples that I have shown you convinces you finally that I'm not trying to tell you to over maintain your car. The 10,000 mile recommended oil interval in the owner's manual or in the maintenance guide, folks, I'll just break the truth to you. The maintenance guide that you buy, that you follow, that some people think it is the last word in maintenance, it is the minimum required maintenance to maintain your warranty. That's what that is. That's why it only goes to 120, and then you restart from the beginning. The 10,000 mile oil change is fine if you have these unrealistic driving experience. I mean, conditions. That's the word I'm going to use here. If you wake up in the morning, you have perfect 70-degree weather all year long. Maybe you live in California, that's doable. And you wake up in the morning, you start your car, you drive 3 miles, you get on the highway, you drive 30 miles, you get to work, park it. A few hours later, you get in the car, do the same drive back, and nothing else. Or you are like a messenger, or you're someone that does out of state sales where you're always driving, you're putting 400 or 500 miles a day, then the 10,000 mile oil change might work. But if you're like the rest of us, including myself, everybody else, are you telling me in a week, on a weekend, you're not going to start your car, I don't know, go to 7-Eleven to grab something for the family and come back, and the car is stone cold, it's super cold outside right now in Chicago, single digit. You can start your car, give it a minute or two to warm up, you're in a hurry, you can drive 2 miles to 7-Eleven, grab something and come back. Well, that's a short drive. So if you read your recommendation on the owner's manual, it's going to tell you that's a severe operating condition or a special operating condition. So your oil change now is 5,000 miles. But they don't really specify how many of these trips. They say frequent. Well, what's frequent? Every week, every day, every month. That's how it is. So why are we playing the guessing game at the cost of the longevity of our cars that we spend? Now cars are becoming very expensive, and why are we playing the guessing game? I wouldn't play the guessing game. I would actually just do the 5,000 and call it a day. And this is experience from a professional. I've seen the aftermath of the 10,000 mile oil changes. In most cases, some people will not have an issue, some people will. But you know what? Do you want to wait that 5, 6, 7, 10 years to find out if you were on this side or this side? I wouldn't risk it. Just do the 5,000 mile oil changes. You that gut feeling that you are hesitant on believing them, it's a right feeling. So 5,000 mile oil changes, 6 months. Do yourself a favor. Again, we go back to the same thing. When cars burn oil and come in under extended warranty, burning oil, it's actually a job I enjoy, and I love engine work and I enjoy it. But I'd rather not see these cars outside of warranty because it is a horrible day for me when I have to tell a customer, sorry, your car needs an engine and six, seven, $8,000. It's not a good day for me. So I'd rather tell you from now, do the oil change on time. You're not going to have problems because there's nobody who's going to come and tell you there's harm in doing the oil change early. That's the truth, folks. I implore you to listen to advice, please. Just at least consider it. So Bluesman 8869. I just bought 21 Tacoma off road, 25,000 miles. Should I replace the front rear transfer case fluid? I would wait another at least 5,000 miles, and then when you get to 30,000 miles, consider replacing them, and life is great. Dusty Gold. I'm interested in the Forerunner. Their asking price 10,000 over MSRP. Do you see the market getting better or staying the same for another year? Another year potentially start to ease off. 10,000 over MSRP is ridiculous. Some people have called me all kinds of things about that, oh, the market demands goes up and down. Yes, when a roll of toilet paper is normally $1 and they're charging $2 for it, that will affect folks in the long term, but it's not going to bankrupt them. But when a car is $50,000 and you mark it up $10,000, and then a year from now the market crashes because now all of a sudden we have cars, nobody wants to buy a car because they all remember what the dealerships did, you're still underwater on that loan, and that could lead to financial ruin. So I'm sorry, $10,000 over MSRP is excessive. Selling at MSRP is fair because, okay, we cannot give you deals below MSRP because there is high demand and we can't give you deals. We'll just sell you the car at the full price, which is MSRP. You start charging over MSRP, I'm sorry, but that's not right. And that's the end of that. I know I talk to salesmen all the time. I work at a dealership. They'll be fine. Dealerships that are run well, that sell cars at MSRP, even at half the number of cars that they used to sell, they will be fine because the service department are extremely busy these days because people are forced to keep their old cars and they're spending small fortunes to keep them going. So there is a business aspect that one shortage here will cover the other one. So 10,000 mile, $10,000 over MSRP is ridiculous. Please, if you don't have to buy this car, I would wait. Hopefully, in a year things will get better. I can't really tell you exactly what's going on, but uh, I hope it does because it's getting a little ridiculous. So, Roland, in your opinion, which would be the best Toyota or Lexus to get used? Honestly, I wouldn't say one model. I did do two videos on best Toyota models to buy and best Lexus, and of course, it's always changes with time because as these some of these cars get older, they develop more problems, and it depends how they were taken care of. But I would watch these two videos. I mean, it's hard if you narrow it down for me. Like I'm looking for an SUV, I'm looking for a Camry, looking for a Corolla, looking for an ES350. I can tell you rear ranges are better, but that overall, really, there's a lot of good models out there. This is Toyota and Lexus after all. So Corolla's B, Lexus IS 250, 120,000 miles, automatic transmission fluid has never been changed. Should I drain or flush it? I would be a little hesitant to. You didn't tell me the year here. I would be a little hesitant to even change it. So if you're going to do anything, drain and fill only. Do not flush it because this is, yeah. So Chris B, my 2006 Lexus LX 470 keeps blowing fuse for backup camera and speedometer. When I replace a fuse, usually it's good for a few days and then same problem. So I want to tell you this. Do you have any water leaks? And this is going to sound strange, but is this a rusty land truck? Because something that is notorious with these, and I wouldn't say it's a car's problem, it's usually, just it is what it is from the environment. So here's the snowball effect with these. The a rock chips around the glass and then rust forms and then the rust pushes the glass up and then water makes it way down perfectly into the fuse block. That's just how the thing works. So you really want to take that kick panel on the driver's side kick panel, look at the fuse block, look for any signs of water. That is the first thing because what you're describing sounds very familiar. So check into that because that's something that is common with these with rust. So LTE went for my first oil change for new RAV4 hybrid. Dealer used 5W30. And when I asked, they showed me that it is allowed by the manual up to 15W30. There was no note to go back to 0W16 like the US manuals. I'm living in Peru. Should I worry? You should not, because this is something that just because you have an A25A in the United States that requires this doesn't mean you have the exact same A25A in Peru. Folks, different markets will have different requirements. So you absolutely need to follow your manual in this one. The manual is telling you it is safe to use this oil, use it. If this same manual for this supposed same car says something else in another region or country, disregard that. You follow your manual because your car is Peruvian spec. The US cars are US spec. I remember something back from the olden days where I come from. In the Middle East, cars were completely different spec. They didn't have grids for the rear defrost. Some of them didn't even have a heater in them. Some parts of the world, cars don't have air conditioning. So there's different specs for each market. You absolutely want to follow the recommendation from your owner's manual that came with your car, not similar cars from other markets. So if it clearly says that 5W30 is approved, then it is approved. You're good to go. There's nothing to worry about. Jeremy Powers, in your experience as a tech, what issues do I have to look out for 2009 Lexus RX 350? I know oil cooler line, water pump, rack and pinion. What else? So front timing cover is one. Not really that much on head gaskets. But one thing on these is the radiator. They're notorious to leak, especially on the sides. Not something that I will proactively tell you, just go and replace it, but keep an eye on it. Don't, you know, let a year pass and you never check the coolant. That is the only thing on these. But really, these are really good cars if you take care of them. And if I remember correctly, this was the one with 70,000 miles. That's very low miles. Eventually, you're going to get to a few wheel bearings here and there. That's, that's just normal wear and tear. I wouldn't say that that's a common problem per se. Another thing with these is vibrations from the drive shaft and a little bit of humming from the transfer case. If you ever get to that, don't be in a rush to fix it, because some of these will just continue to hum all the way to 300,000 miles. And then you'll wonder at the end, like, thank God I didn't fix this, because it didn't really progress any further. So let's see here. David Pineda, Matrix RX 2006, always a check on July with PO171. Clean the mass airflow twice. Do you think it's time to replace it? Nope. Very common problem. This is actually a very good car. I wouldn't rush to replace it. Very common problem with these is the intake manifold gasket leaking. I mean, I have done so many of these. It is interesting. Actually, this did a no, it was not a Matrix. It was a Corolla. It was 2005 Corolla. It was just the head gasket on one. It was leaking oil. But intake manifold gasket, notorious for these. Very simple to do. Super high labor. If you look at it, it's like 3 hours, but it's very simple. Just remove the fan shroud, and then you could pull the intake. You don't even have to pull it all the way out. Just pull it out enough where you can peel the gasket, put a new gasket, clean everything, put it back. Should be done in 15 minutes. Well, might take you a little longer if you've never done this, but notorious for this. And the easiest way to know if uh, if it's actually leaking. So right where the engine cover is and the intake is going there, just shine a light right in between them, and you'll see like wetness all around the intake manifold. And if you see that, just replace it and you're good to go. This is very common on these, and the gasket is like what, 10, $20, and maybe have a couple hours of your time, if that. Replace it and just keep going. That's a very common one on these. Don Y, which engine is built better for longevity with regular maintenance? Fifth gen Forerunner or third gen Tacoma? Seems like the current Tacoma has too many plastic parts. Honestly, and this is unbiased, fifth generation Tacoma. Fifth generation Tacoma. Yeah, then we're going in the future here. Fifth generation Forerunner. That 1GR is a tank. It's really well made, and they really worked out all the little issues that it have. Technically, the third generation Tacoma has a first generation engine, which did have some issues at the beginning. At 2021, 2022, really they fixed all these issues, but still, I look at the Tacoma engine and I look at the Forerunner engine. They're both good engines, but if you're asking me which one is more reliable, the first generation Forerunner. That 1GR is a beautiful engine. Let's see here. Uh, So Donald Campbell, why my Toyota Noah not going to drive when I start in the morning after 10? So you want to check your transmission. I don't even know what a Toyota Noah is, by the way. It might be a different name for a different model, but we don't have that model. I've heard a lot of viewers ask about it. I got to look it up one of these days. But typically, I'll give you a generic answer. This is not specific to your car because I'm not very familiar with it. Typically, when cars don't want to shift into drive when they're cold, either A, it's just too cold and you want to give it a little bit of time to warm up, or if your transmission fluid is low. So that's something you want to look into and check. If it's too low, top it off and you're good to go. If it's not too low, then just give the car a little bit more time to warm up because it's just too cold. I don't know what kind of weather you have. If it's extremely cold, then that's a problem. Colorado, Boo, how you doing, man? Are you staying safe there? No wedding ring when you're working on your cars. Now, see, I'm wearing my wedding ring right now, but you don't want to do that when you work on cars. I always worry about that. How often should we change our PCV valve? So there's no interval for it. And it's not something I would do anywhere earlier than your spark plug replacement. And usually, again, we talked about this briefly, but I'll re-mention it here. I think Colorado Boo is Rick. So if it's not, then I failed. But when you change your spark plugs, just change the PCV valve. This is one of those maintenance items that you do not want to wait for it to cause issues. Kind of like your oil change. Sometimes people drain the oil and like, oh, the oil is clean. Well, you don't want it to be dirty. That's the whole point of replacing them. So this is one of those. You want to replace the PCV valve before it causes issues. So a good interval that I've seen from experience is right around when you replace your spark plugs. Yes, in some cases you could go 300,000 miles and it's fine, and in some cases at 50,000 miles it clogs and causes all kinds of issues. So with good maintenance at spark plug change time, you should be good. So let's see. Shedder Roman, yes, we actually took your comment was didn't know you did live. Yes, I do live. We did take a small break from the live stream to catch up with everything, but we're back. So Attitude Langam just bought a 2022 Tacoma with Toyota upgrade software to make gas throttle more responsive. What's your opinion of OV Tune and KD Tune? So Toyota will not do custom software to change your throttle response. The car that you got is how the final programming is. But a lot of folks have said that the OV Tune, the other one I've heard of as well, but it improves throttle response and it actually improves the way the transmission shifts. That's another benefit. But give it a shot. I mean, obviously it's going to affect some aspects of her warranty, but do read into. I don't have personal experience with it. I haven't installed in one of my cars to tell you, oh yeah, it's this or this. But do get into the community of Tacoma owners and see what others have as far as feedback. But obviously this is going to have an effect on your warranty, not for the whole car, but things related to what they tune will change. G-Man, I am a former Toyota MDT, left the dealership in 2017. Good for you, my brother. I hope you're retired, not just got fed up with the industry. This is a tough industry to be in sometimes, and I hope you're retired and you're enjoying your time. Or if you didn't retire, you just went somewhere else. I hope everything's going well for you. Being an MDT at a dealership can be fun sometimes. It just looks like, I'm sorry, we're just going to rant for a little bit. Technician rant here. Being an MDT is Master Diagnostic Technician. It's the highest level technician at a dealership. Sometimes all you're doing is diagnostic and heavy work. And it just feels like you look at the apprentice in front of you, it feels like you're standing and the world's moving. You see the apprentice getting easy work and just happy and moving along, and you're stuck in one giant job that nobody else wants to do. It's just an interesting feeling sometimes. I enjoy it. I love it, but I know not everybody else does. So, Tracy, hi, Mrs. Car Carenut. Great job filming. I agree. She's super patient. I mean, Mrs. Car Carenut's awesome. I don't just say this because she's my wife and otherwise I will get in trouble, but she's really good. If we could only convince her to show her face here and there. You've probably seen her reflection on some of the videos she filmed, but so let's see here. Pablo, Camry XSE 2021. Can I use Mobile One 0W16 instead of OEM from Toyota dealership? So you could, and this is the debate. Look, Mobile One is really good fluid, but the Toyota fluid is specifically designed for this car. So if you take the Toyota oil, use it in another brand, it's not good. But Mobile One is good for all brands because that's how they are engineered to be generic, not generic, but like comprehensively used across many makes and models. There's no problem using Mobile One, but do shop around because sometimes, well, not in these times, everything's expensive now, but sometimes the Toyota oil will actually be cheaper if you shop around and you have the right dealer. So, Patrick Noble, these error codes 355, 531, 351, and 001918 Tacoma 3.5, any help? Honestly, I would need a little bit of time to research this. So, I need you to leave a comment after we're done with the live stream, so I can, with full codes, P, C, or B. I need that information as well. I'm trying to remember off memory here. 355 might be a crank position code. 351 is a coil code. 531, I would have to look into. 1918, I think they are timing codes. It just seems too random and all over the place. Do you have rodent damage here? That's the one thing I would look at initially, because when I see a bunch of random codes that are not correlating with each other, I would look at rodent damage, because that's usually what does this. So Animal 16365, I got a 2012 Scion TC at 28,000 miles, 6 speed. Should I change transmission fluid or wait? I would at this point, buy time, just do a drain and fill or a flush. You're good with a flush as well, as long as you check the fluid level afterwards, and everything's good. So Haynes 2021 ref 4Runner, 4K miles, engine knocking sound and cold start since it was new. Should I be concerned? Does this improve as engine breaks in? It's not going to improve. It's not going to get worse. It's not a problem. That's how these things are. I mean, they clatter like you would not believe. This is, I just told you this was the best engine Toyota makes, but that's one of its characteristics, especially when they're cold. And then occasionally, this is the weird part, we tried and tried to figure out why they do this. Nothing. Occasionally, you just park and all of a sudden you just start clattering away. It's like, why are you clattering? It just clatters. That's just how they are. And I recently, I think that customer came back. There was a customer with, I think it was a 2011 4Runner, which does have the same engine as the one you have. It had 365,000 miles. And I intentionally took that car for a little longer test drive just to see how it's at. It clatters exactly the same. It drives like you. If I wouldn't tell you this car has this many miles, you would not know, because the thing is really good shape and drives perfect. Original engine, original trans. You would not believe how good this thing is. So let's see where we're at. So, not sure you, are Toyotas conservatively mapped for ignition timing? So they are, in a sense, because every engine that is labeled FE, F is actually economy. So general tune and general valve timing will be, or actually the cams, will be tuned towards better emissions economy, not really performance. When you have an engine that has GE, for example, like if you remember the 2JZ GE or GTE, G is performance. So for some of the modern models that have the G is the IS 500. If I remember, that was a 2UR GSE or G. I don't remember the exact naming, but G is performance oriented. So the cams will favor performance over emissions and fuel economy. Uh, but they are still overall conservative with their timing. They don't go aggressive timing because, again, these are reliable, daily driven cars. You don't need to go too aggressive. And that's why Toyota makes decent cars that are very reliable, because they're always on the conservative side. They'd rather give you 10 less horsepower than their competitor, but an additional 200,000 miles of reliability. It's little stuff that really makes a difference on the long term. And they've traditionally been very conservative with everything, not just ignition timing. Usually their engines are overbuilt for the power they make and for the max RPM allowed and all this stuff. You can really push them. That's why the 2JZ, you could really push it to the moon and it's still fine. Believe it or not, some of these newer engines, not many people modify them, but the 2AR, for example, you could really push that engine and it'll just keep going. Same thing with the 2AZ, the one that is notorious for oil burning. Some people modify these engines and you can really push them to the limits, and they're fine because they're usually overbuilt, underachievers, if you would, because by choice, that's how they do things always. That's why their engines last a very long time. Andres Kelman, thank you so much for watching the live stream, sir. Victor have a 2007 Camry 2AZFE that burns 1 quart of oil every 250 miles. Don't know if I should keep it, sell it, or rebuild the engine. I want to keep it, but not sure if it will hold up. It has 115,000 miles. Honestly, that model Camry is overall a very good car, but typically it starts. This is how the snowball effect starts. It starts burning oil a little bit, then it gets really bad, and then people just get fed up and they neglect the whole car. So if you've had this car for a long time and you're generally taking care of it, there's no rust on it, it's not falling apart, the suspension is in good shape, do a full inspection in the car. If it's in good shape, perhaps budget for an engine rebuild. Don't put a used engine because it makes absolutely no sense. Just do the repair that Toyota did at the time, which is pistons and rings, and you will have no issues. But if the car needs, the suspension is falling apart, the transmission is slipping, the axles make noise, and it's rusty, and the exhaust is falling apart, then it's not worth it. But if the car otherwise is pristine, perhaps it's worth it because 115,000 miles is nothing for these. Other than the engine, they don't really have many other problems, just wear and tear items, nothing crazy. But that's really a decision you will have to make, granted that you check the rest of the car. That's very important that you do that. Animal 16365, would you recommend people who live in the Rust Belt go get their vehicles treated with crown or fluid film rust prevention systems? Yes, if you have a truck, it is an absolute must for trucks. For cars, if you have an older car, yes, the newer cars, they're actually getting better at covering things where you don't really need to go that aggressive. And there's not really much. And all the stuff that are gonna get rusty, you can spray. Exhaust. Yes, there is high temperature rust coatings and whatnot. They'll wear off and they'll still rust. There's nothing you can do about that. The exhaust will just reach a point where it just falls apart. Suspension stuff, you can spray them, but then they're going to get difficult to take off because you have all this glob on top of them. But trucks, not the body, it's the frame that you want to protect mostly. Most people spray the suspension stuff, they really don't fall apart as much as you think they do. Struts maybe, but even that has gotten really better. But frames and trucks is the main thing. That's the main one that I would recommend you spray. Folks, we'll take a few questions and then we'll talk about some updates. So, Mike Parston, 2003 Toyota Tundra, 110,000 miles. Transfer has not been changed for about 10 years or 40,000 miles. Should I do a full service or a partial change? Partial change, absolutely. Don't go full service. This is getting a little old. Just drain and fill and call it a day. So, then I would like to get a scan tool that would work for a 1993 Land Cruiser. I bought an Innova that claimed OBD1 for many Toyota models, but it does not communicate with my vehicle. Unfortunately, some of these old Land Cruisers, they were really stubborn with communication. And the only way you can get them to communicate is to use the brick, which what we used to call the brick at the dealership. That's the only way you're going to communicate with them. And really, the communication was like, does this thing even worth it? Because there is most of the functions like check engine light, you can get it to flash and read code. Same thing with the ABS if equipped. You're not really going to be able to do much with the scan tool. Honestly, I have to say this because um, you can try. I really haven't had a scan tool that worked on OBD1. Even the brick's so hard to get to work on that model. Try the. I don't even want to make this recommendation. Top Don and these guys, they supposedly have OBD1, but even when you do get it to work, you're gonna be surprised how little there is with a 1993 line cruiser. So I would just read it. I don't know what you need to do with the scan tool, but if you're just trying to get engine codes, just use the diagnostic connector and just get the codes from the flashing light and call it a day. Because the codes are very rudimentary in OPD1. They don't even do much really. They're very vague and usually they're incorrect most of the time. So yeah. Cody C, 2015 Sienna coolant tank was empty when I checked it in October, topped it, and have lost 3 quarters since. Can't find a leak. Should I be worried about head gasket? potentially, but not internally. You're going to see an external head gasket leak. Pressurize the system and then see what you find. I want you to really do a close inspection of the head gasket, external. I did a video on an Avalon, which has the same engine as your car. I showed you how you can look at it from the front and the back. Something that is somewhat common with these, especially I'm seeing you're from Canada. I don't know if you're on Rusty Lane, Canada or not, although I don't think there is an Unrusty Lane, Canada. But they'd rust, the head gasket will corrode on the outside and start leaking. And you'll see a trail of coolant on the outside. It's not going to mix oil and coolant. It's not going to do none of that. Car will run perfectly fine. But look at the head gasket on the outside, both banks. See if you see a trail of pink coolant. Sometimes it'll be like crust. Now you're not going to see an actual fluid. That is actually enough to drop your level. Folks, I'll take one last question and we'll call it a day. So, we'll actually not call it a day. We'll talk about some stuff. We have a new 2021 Corolla. I changed the engine oil at 500 miles, then at 1,500, 3,000 intervals since then. Would it be wise to change CVT fluid early at 30,000? It wouldn't, because I would just wait till the 60. There's nothing. I wouldn't specify a specific interval, but I think you've done well with the engine oil, not the transmission oil. That is not something I would do. So, are you guys ready for some updates? I'm just going to do this. Okay. So, there has been a lot going on in the backgrounds. I'm going to scroll now to the end of the chat so I can see what you guys are saying these days. Okay. So, now I am live with you on the chat, so I'll read what you're writing. We're not going to answer questions. We'll leave that for the next live stream, but I want to ask you a few things. Now it's my turn to ask you questions. So, how do you guys like the car reviews that we have been doing? An update on my new car. Yes, I will give you an update on my new car. I'm waiting for your answers. How do you like the car reviews lately? Okay. You are turning right. Lane Hog says you are turning the tables. Of course I am. Okay. So we have a new employee, and don't get ideas. I'll show you the new employee. We have a new employee at the Car Care Nut channel over here, which is this guy. I have to make a confession. This is the new camera that we're using, starting with the, what is it? The Prius video. That was the first one shot on this new camera. I have a confession to make on this new camera. I am underqualified for this camera because it is a little bit of a technological masterpiece for me, and actually it was on back order and I had to wait for a while to get it. But I want to give a huge shout out. See, somebody recognizes an A7S3, I think it's called, with a very big lens. I don't know what the specs and this stuff, but I want to give a huge shout out to actually a subscriber that I now am a subscriber to their channel, the Hybrid Shooter. I don't know how these guys do these videos, these high quality, and I'm very dedicated to do that, but he is awesome. The Hybrid Shooter, don't know, I've never seen him on the live stream or anything. I've never seen him comment on the channel, but he's an active subscriber. He actually convinced me that this should be the next kidney-sized investment for the channel, because this thing is not cheap, and I'm afraid just to carry it like that, because I to me, buying a cell phone was too expensive, but this is a little bit over my comfort zone. But gotta do it to keep the improving the content for you guys so you see. And the other thing I want to talk about is my personal car. Because I'm doing the car reviews, and by the way, the cars are coming from Toyota, just press cars, normal stuff. Because of this, I haven't driven my car for a long time. Believe it or not, my car just crossed 1,700 miles. So coming up here soon, maybe in April, we're going to have to do an oil change by time. this is the first time that my daily driver gets a oil change by time. Usually I put massive miles on my cars and I'll get to that 5,000 in no time. But yeah, because I'm driving the other cars for the reviews, it's not getting a lot of love, and we're gonna need to get it some oil changes, some service going on it. And the customer stage videos, we've been filming these a lot actually, and I hope you guys like them. It's I don't want to stick with it just a customer stage, but basically I decided to every car that comes through the garage and we do some work on it, I'll just film it. Mrs. Car Karenat has been, even before this, she's been really a support for the channel, but her camera skills have really went above and beyond. And I wish I have that kind of skills, but she's very patient. And even because I'm not, when you work on cars, you slightly lose your patience sometimes. Actually, there was the Camry video that we just released today. Um, there was a lot of parts that we cut out of that video because you work on cars. Sometimes you get very frustrated, especially when the PCV valve doesn't want to go in. You notice I cut that. It can be really frustrating, and you start, you know, having a conversation with the car is the word that I want to use here. Uh, so she was very patient. I sometimes get aggravated at things, and she's very patient. So you shout out to her as well. So let's see. Mrs. Car Karen just texted me because there are two questions that she wants me to answer. Let's see this. So let's take these two questions. Have a 2013 Venza all-wheel drive 2GR. I got 110,000 miles, now 120,000 miles. What should I do for maintenance beside oil changes? Don't think transmission fluid was replaced. Anything to look out for? Do change the coolant at this point if it's never been changed. Spark plugs are coming up. Actually, spark plugs should be due now. And the transmission fluid, just a drain and fill, and I'm really a little hesitant on that even. Let's see the other one that she sent me. Elvis Gomes. So my commute now will consist of 140 miles round trip for work, mostly highway. I'm interested in getting a RAV4 Prime or Prius Prime. Which one would you choose and why? Honestly, if you're gonna go that high miles, I would get neither. I would get just a regular RAV4 hybrid or regular Prius, because you're gonna run that EV range. It's not gonna get you to work and back where it makes it worth it. But that's just my opinion. I would just get a regular hybrid and call it a day, because your commute is just too long. If you were commuting 10, 15 miles a day, then yeah, maybe it was a Prime would make sense. But you're gonna blast through that EV range so quick that it's might as well just get a hybrid and save yourself a few bucks, unless you want the plug-in version. Then that's up to you. All right, folks. So I have been hesitating to throw Mrs. Car Karen out under the bus, but I think now I've said it, and she's really gonna get upset with me, but it'll be okay. So Mrs. Car Karen wants to start a YouTube channel, and something that she have talked with a few viewers is, if she gets I think it was 100 subscribers, I might push that to 500. If she gets 500 subscribers, she's gonna make a cooking video. So you see her right there, and she's let's make her yelling at me worth it. So subscribe to her channel so she can get her first video going, because I've been encouraging her. She's very humble and she's very shy. She doesn't want to do this, but we'll encourage her to get out of her comfort zone, because you know what? Almost 2 years ago, she encouraged me and got me out of my comfort zone, and everything came out because of that. And I hope I have been helping people out there, so she might do the same. So see, she says no, stop. Okay, I'll stop, I promise. All right, folks, so we're going to keep the reviews going. We're going to keep the customer stage video going, but I do want to kind of mix it up in between, because we have a few videos on your request list that I need to get to. One of them is what was it? VVTI, how Toyota VVTI works and why they rattle. That's something I want to get to, and more educational videos as well. A lot of you have mentioned that we kind of put a stop on that. On the live stream, I do want to do the live stream, perhaps not every week because I have a lot going on lately. With these press cards, they're kind of putting a strain on everything. But there is one more thing which I will not tell you about, but there's something brewing in the background that you guys will happen. I will share more as it becomes a reality. Guys, thank you so much for watching the channel. Can you believe we're almost at 230,000 subscribers? Um, People say these numbers, lightly. I will not say it lightly. These are 230,000 souls, people with lives, and I appreciate every one of you. Nobody is just a number. I really appreciate you guys for watching the channel, for all your comments. I try my best to answer as much comments, as much emails, as much social media as possible. Of course, there is always a limit to what I can do. I am one person, but I will always do my best. That is a promise from me. I will do my best. If my best is not good, then what are you going to do? But I'll do my best. This has been a life changing experience to do this channel. I never thought it would be this point, and it's all thanks to you guys. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for watching the channel, and thank you for your continued support. All the Patreons, everybody. I feel like I'm giving a speech now, but love you guys. You're awesome. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys in the next live stream. Maybe we'll give it a week or two, and then we'll do another one just to mix it up a little bit and give Mrs. Car Care Nut fam the Car Care Nut family a break so we can do something on the weekend here and there. And I don't want to get in trouble. Should I get in trouble? Mrs. Car Care Nut channel is her name. Just press her name. That's her channel. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching the live stream. We'll see you in the next one. I'll announce it on the channel. And until the next live stream or video, may the Lord bless you and keep you. And you guys have a wonderful day.